Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Hudson, New York, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, everybody. Happy New Year. We're here with Mara spinning the dials and live with Mallory and DCW, David Charles Wilson. And we're chilling on a New Year's morning. Mara's going to make some vegan eggs for breakfast. We're having a little breakfast, and don't tell Kaustubha, he doesn't like those. And then
using that Just Egg stuff.
Using Just Egg stuff. You know why? It's a celebration.
I care about you guys.
It's the eggless stuff, but they didn't have it at the local market.
Hey, but check this out, Prabhu.
Could you use like tofu or paneer or something like that? You know.
Yeah.
Stop micromanaging my New Year's breakfast.
Okay. All right. It's because I love you so much. I want you to be healthy. Right?
Is it love or is it micromanagement control, Kaustubha? We got a great show today. It's our New Year's Eve or New Year's Day Spectacular, we call it. Our New Year's Day Spectacular. And me and Mara G are about to board a plane in Albany headed for India. We're super excited about it.
You're leaving today? Is that it?
Yeah.
We're leaving in a couple hours, sir, after our breakfast.
Cool. All right.
Everything's taken care of. The dogs, the cats, the farm, the kids. All the things are getting checked off the list.
The sheep?
Sheep are good. Sheep are good. They got their hay. They got their water. Yes.
Nice.
Hey, we got some announcements, sir.
Hit them.
Before we get into our spectacular, we got some winners of our Silver Tulsi Mali giveaway.
Been waiting for this announcement.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank Silver Tulsi Mala, our friend Garunga Singha and his team in Mayapur, who make the best quality. You see, I'm wearing them. Are you wearing yours, Kaustubha?
I don't have neck beads from them. I have, but my japa malas from them.
Your japa malas, incredible stuff, and he just loves what we do, and he wants to support us. So he sends us some freebies to give away, and we like to support him because we feel like he's connected with serving the devotees. He's from South Africa. He lives in Mayapur with his beautiful family, and we are anyway. You can see my beads I'm wearing. But we have some winners for our giveaway. And if you're interested in his stuff, you can check out tulsimala.com. And Mara, what's the the Instagram handle?
Instagram is Silver Tulsi Mala.
No underscores there?
Yes, underscores.
Underscores in places. But it's a great place. And they have a way you could do the shipping quick, or you could wait, and it's like getting a treasure in the mail, like the old days when you send away for something. You're like, when is it coming? Allows 6 to 8 weeks for delivery time. But anyway, they have an overnight way to do it quickly. But check this out. So our first winner is Amalini Radha.
Oh, little Amalini.
The beautiful bead bag. Check this bead bag. They also sell bead bags. And I sort of like, a bead bag. What about the beads? But this thing is gorgeous. These hand-painted bead bags.
That's very beautiful.
One of a kind. It's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. It's almost like,
it's absolutely
don't
gorgeous.
chant in it, frame it. And then we had another great one, a great...
well, hold it. Let's just say congratulations to little Amalini. She's one of our
Amalini, and she's going to
favorite listeners.
Yeah.
Great soul.
Yeah. And then we have another one, and it's Diane from Las Vegas, David Jackson, Diane from Las Vegas. She wins these gorgeous. I'm ready to steal these myself. I was like, and the winner is Raghunath's brother, whatever. But these are like gorgeous Tulsi Malas. Look at the little
end like that, the tassel at the end.
The tassel on the end, and then like the first 8 beads in are all hand carved as well. And these are for Diane from Las Vegas. Diane, you got to send me your address, and we're going to send these out to you before we get on the plane. Woo! And then we have these beautiful neck beads, very similar to the one I have. Matter of fact, they are the ones I have.
Hold it. But oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, these are beautiful, thick,
Those
and
are
they're
neck
just
beads.
they're neck beads, and they have little pieces of silver between each bead, and they're
Those should be
super
for a
strong.
guy, I think, right?
They are for a guy. They are for Jimmy James. Jimmy
Jimmy
James won these, my brother.
James. Congratulations, Jimmy James.
Send us your address.
Send us your address right now, Jimmy James, and look at these beautiful neck beads for
That's-
ladies.
That's
But,
more for
you
a
know,
lady there, yeah.
Any
Nice.
gender can
Sure.
wear these.
Yeah.
Ladies tend to like these, but here at Wisdom of the Sages, you just come as you are. And these are for guess who got these?
How would I guess? How would I know? I don't know.
Well, we got 10,000 listeners. You guess. No, Yogeshwari, Cindy Lunsford got these. She put up this beautiful
very
post.
nice.
I was like, you know what? She won these, and it comes with a silver cover at the end. It's Justin Miller says Bhakti Bling. It is Bhakti Bling.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So thanks to Silver Tulsi Mala, to lassimala.com. Check those things out. And they're good friends.
And we're hearing that some ladies do rock the huge neck beads.
Some ladies do rock them. Thank you. Okay. Laura Marco wears them, She's cool.
The big ones?
She says she does on the message board. Okay. What other interesting things, announcements? Mara G?
We have Bhakti Recovery Group meeting at 9:30, and they're starting A Course in Miracles now, reading from A Course in Miracles, and that's every Sunday they're doing that.
Kaustubha's like, shut it down! Shut that nonsense. Course in Miracles is a great book. Who knows ever? No one knows how quite it was inspired. They say some divinely inspired. But it's got some very good things within Bhakti. I think that will fit really nicely hand in hand with Bhakti.
Yeah. Also, if
Kaustubha's like, no one told me this. No one told me this information.
Nobody informed me.
If people want more info,
They switched it to Amar Chitra Kata Bhakti Recovery Meeting.
They can go to bhaktirecoverygroup.com to find out when the meetings are, the Zoom numbers and all that.
Yeah.
And
I should do a Amar Chitra Kata Krishna comic book meeting. Wouldn't that be great?
I thought that's what Sweet Baby Krishna became.
It sort of did become that, except it was more of a drama. We'd act it out.
Right.
Oh, Krishna? And we'd take on voices.
Funky was really good at that. Also, there's no show tomorrow because we'll be traveling. Unless Kaustubha is doing it.
Kaustubha, you doing those?
I don't have anything planned, so I think, yeah.
You don't want to pull in somebody from the Eco Village there?
Not by tomorrow, and I guess we won't be here tomorrow. I'm not going to say that I could do that the next. So why don't we just let it go? This would be good. This would be a good time for me to prepare for the courses that I'm giving and everything like that too. So why don't we just go ahead and do that?
All right. Well, that's great news. Maybe
channel a little extra japa. In a pilgrimage place like this, and before everyone arrives, maybe I'll just go do a little extra sadhana.
Hey, you know what I wanted to mention about yesterday's show? We had a great Q&A day yesterday, especially with Kelly Becker asking that question about what do you do when you're in a line of work where you deal with people in pain and suffering, and you see it on a regular basis. And the idea of like building a strength bubble of protection through a strong sadhana, etc., is the only way you're going to be able to give love, unless you really can love yourself. And when we say that, we don't mean the Manny and the Patty. We mean like really have a strong spiritual fortitude and practice that you can go into the burning house, so to speak, and save people. So I want to thank her for that question. But you know what else I was thinking? Because one of the questions was, are there any specific prayers? And the Bhagavatam is loaded with prayers, right? Name some prayers. Prayers of Queen Kunti.
Prahlad.
I
mean, everywhere. We just the Pachetas we just read, like Shiva, it goes on and on.
Where you could just go into groups of prayers. Prayers of the song of the gopis in separation, and the Gopi Gita, and so it's one prayer after. But they were recommending heartfelt prayers. But I was thinking also, sometimes during my puja, I just play these Ganga Stotram, Jagannath Astakam, Govardhan Astakam. These prayers that you can get on YouTube. And or Vishnu Sahasranam, and you just let them play in the background. Even if you're not necessarily, you're praying for the person, it just changes the ether of the room, the sound consciousness, instead of just Because even in the hospital, I was thinking like noises can divert you and bring your mind, and you hear people's talking. It can bring your mind to other places, keeping it real high. But just there's so many beautiful prayers pre-recorded. Anyway, I'm not discounting any of the other things mentioned, but I wanted to mention that yesterday because I like to, in the course of the day, just play these beautiful astakams and stotrams and stutis in the background of my life. The soundtrack to Raghunath's life.
That's nice, Raghunath. And maybe we can actually talk a little bit more. I wanted to speak a little bit. We should kind of frame this show out because this is a little different. We're doing something a little different today than
it's a little different today.
Right?
It's January 1st. We're going to do it different. We're going to talk about last year.
Yeah, talk about last year, maybe a little bit what, looking forward to the next year, and some of the stuff that we've been through, where we're at, what we're feeling, maybe how you're meant to kind of enter a new year, so we could call it, therefore it's a New Year's spectacular, right?
Yeah, it's spectacular.
But since you brought up Kelly's question, and for those that don't know, you can listen to yesterday's Q&A episode. What was that episode? 926, I think.
927.
927. So that was Q&A yesterday, and Kelly Becker, one of our friends and regular listeners, she works she's an ICU nurse. She works in an intensive care unit, and she was sharing that there was a person in there that was, I mean, you wake up, you're in a hospital, you can't talk, and this person can't speak. They're injured there severely, likely just in a very intense state of suffering, and she feels for this person, and her question had to do with how do we protect us. You take on so much, you care for this person, you sympathize with this person, and it can take over your life, and maybe it even affects your ability to care for the other patients. And so she asked a question about that, and we reached out to some experts. And one of those experts was Ganesham Prabhu, who we've had on the show, he's a hospital chaplain, and he cares for people that are passing away and their families. I think it may be worth reading what he said again, but the reason why I wanted to bring this up, and since you already brought up Kelly, but the reason why I thought this was significant is I said, what he's sharing here could be not just for intensive care nurses, but in one sense for everyone
Sure.
practicing bhakti in this world. He brought some things up here that I think have a lot to do with, because when you get to the end of the year, you look back at it, and you look at the pain that you've experienced, you look at the struggle that you've gone through, you think about them, you try to process them, you try to grow through them, you try to become stronger. But I think what he shares here is relevant to everyone practicing bhakti. And so maybe I could read that again.
Please.
And
it was sanguine, it was deep, it was thoughtful, and it was like,
yeah,
it was like a mic
born
drop.
From experience.
It was like a mic drop moment,
I felt that. And he's someone that, he's a special character because, he became a monk in the Bhakti Center.
Yeah.
I think he lived as a monk for something like a decade, something about 10 years or so. He was always seen as a person that's like very peaceful minded and very kind to everyone. Like he never kind of got caught up in the different arguments, or he was kind of like beyond all that always, just special soul. Someone very much, it's perfect that he went into this field of being able to really care for people and sympathize with them and help them through these difficult transitions. And so when I read this, I feel it's informed by his years of study and practice of bhakti yoga, combined with his practical experience in the field, in a very difficult field of dealing with people, dealing with death so close on a daily basis. I asked him currently, I said, how many, I don't know if patients is the right word or client, but like how many people are you right. helping, like currently? And he said, it's like 75 people, right? It's like 75 families at one time. He, because you're checking in with them it's not like he's speaking to them all every day, but it's like he's in a lot of people's lives, at one time, and they all have difficult stories, that he's helping with. So he's got a lot of experience. So this is what he wrote. it was a prayer that the nurses where he works asked. They were asking, could you give us a prayer, something that we could meditate and think on, so that we can compartmentalize all this and understand it and process it. So this is what he wrote. And again, let's think of this in terms of like our own lives. And I see this as like a way of like, well, let me just preface it with this. Being a bhakti yogi and being in the world at the same time is challenging. We're reading books and trying to become deep meditators, reading books about transcending everything, the spiritual realm, and living amongst saints, and sadhus, and then you go to work, and
Right.
you're stepping into, like, quote unquote, the real world, like like you're dealing with people that aren't necessarily into that. You're dealing with people with qualities that are maybe very much the opposite of what you want. You're dealing with pressures that are very challenging. What to speak of people that work in intensive care units. And so, but we all have our challenges. We all have our struggles. How can we be there, be responsible, serve the people that we care about, try to serve, be a servant of the world, and not get dragged down by it, but hopefully get transformed by it in such a way that we come out stronger, purer, kinder, more thoughtful, more caring, more devoted. And so this speaks a lot to that. So here he goes. He says, here's the prayer. My dear God, sometimes our emotions get too entangled with our patients' struggles, their emotions, hopes, fears, and sufferings. So similarly, sometimes we get entangled in raising our family, and entangled in the work world, entangled, he says, please let us feel enough to be present. Feel enough that our actions and words are caring and sincere and ring true, but also help us to untangle ourselves and keep mended the boundaries that allow us to return back to ourselves with peace, strength, and gratitude. If I don't have peace, if I don't have strength, and I don't have gratitude, I haven't tuned in just right, We
want to go fishing, but we don't want to get wet. You want to reach your hand out, but you don't want to fall in.
Right. Exactly.
And it's hard because because in one sense you have the mechanical job. You got to give the infusion. You got to take the blood. You got to, take the temperature. Everything's sort of mechanical. You could write it in a book, but there's all this other stuff that deals with your heart and your emotions and these very real human experience things that you can't. I don't know if you could learn this stuff unless you're actually applying a spiritual practice.
And my point is just like often, Raghunath, like you don't work in an intensive care unit, but like sometimes your life is like a big intensive care unit, right?
It's kidding? My whole life is an intensive.
Yeah. And so, like in the course of caring for your children and going through the struggles of that, in the course of marriage, in the struggles that can be there, in the course of financial issues and business issues and all these things, our heart gets invested, our time and our energy and our emotions get tied up into it. We have to be able to be there, be present, be responsible, be compassionate, and at the same time, let it all go too, so that we can actually hear these messages, spiritual messages that we're meant to hear, meditate on them, reflect on them, hear these mantras with purity, with a peaceful mind, so he wraps it up with this, which I thought was like a really nice instruction. And this was the last sentence of what he wrote. He said, let us accept everything and let go of everything so that our hearts may be renewed and remain steadily engaged in your divine service. And so to me, this is something like on a day like today where you can look back on the previous year, take it all in, accept it all, and also let it all go, and move into the new year with, refreshed. Move into the new year, with deeper realizations and deeper conviction to become, an instrument of the divine. I thought it was a really nice thing that he had. So,
That was a read this again quote.
Yeah, that was a read this again. And maybe why don't we start just Raghunath with you, Sharon? I know that you want to share. You've been through a hell of a lot this year.
I've been through a hell. You could just stop there. I've been through hell this year. And yesterday, everybody's writing something on Instagram like, this year and this, what a year it was, and what a year. Cheers to 2020. You know what? It was a painful year of sandcastles crumbling. And if I can just do a little recap for myself, it was I'm going through a divorce, and it was from an 18-year marriage with children, with stepchildren, with a home. And it's all these things that the Bhagavatam teaches, what you are and what you are not. And all those things were getting purged, and framing it out with the Bhagavatam was such a lifesaver. And I'm so grateful to this Wisdom of the Sages, which is giving me accountability. It's the number one reason I'm doing this podcast, people. It's not for you. Get out of your head. I'm doing this for me. This podcast is that I have accountability to read the Bhagavatam every day, like all the great masters have said. How do you do this? You hear truth every day, and then something happens to you. It changes you. It shifts your direction. And you can't maybe change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And so by hearing on a regular basis, we're just shifting. And how did the sand castle crumble? Here's my quick recap of 2022 for Raghunath.
Okay.
I remember coming back from Colombia, and we couldn't go to India last year, which we did. So we went to Colombia. And I came back, and I understand it. This isn't a blame of my wife. Our marriage had some serious issues, and the split was happening, and I couldn't avoid it. And we were cohabitating, and she was leaving. So I didn't know she was leaving, but when I got back from,
she broke it to you then.
No. We had known before that, but she actually left the house. So when I came back to the house, it was almost like my house has been robbed. It had that feeling like you walk into your house, like, where's the couch? Where's the dog? Where's the kids? And I tell you, I snapped. I really snapped. Why? Well, these are the things we base our identity on: our home, our family, our children, our pets. This is my identity. And then, so that was one thing, just having the house not there.
So and what you were talking about for over a long period of time, suddenly
30 years I've been talking about we are not this body, we are not this home.
No, not that. Yeah. In other words, I'm talking about you were talking about the divorce for some time, but in that moment it all became real. It wasn't talking anymore
when she moved out of the house. And also the house it was a dream to do the farm. So what does this mean about the dream? What does this mean about my offering? What does this mean about my workplace? And I also, I made a living traveling and teaching every weekend, and I couldn't do that anymore. Just with custody arrangements, I would never see my children. And so it just became overwhelmingly, your children are not yours. That was beaten into me this year. You don't possess them. And it was devastating. And I'm really close to my kids. I really love being a dad. And I love having a family. And it was really, really devastating. And I found myself experiencing, and me, I'm really good. Hey, whatever, let's do it. Let's keep going. Let's move forward. And you can't cheat the body. The body knows what's going on, and the body is keeping score. And I tell you, I was suffering tremendous anxiety attacks that I've never had before. And that I would be like, oh, I think I'm having a heart attack. I feel weird, something. And what was happening was, and I remember calling one of our Wisdom of Sages people's husband, who's a doctor. He says, it doesn't sound like a heart attack. I was like, you think it's a stroke? It sounds like you have anxiety. I was like, well, I have no anxiety in my life. Everything's going good. She goes, well, how's your business? I was like, oh, it's completely up in the air. How's your family? I was like, oh, we're splitting up. How's your home? I was like, I'm losing my home, potentially losing everything. They're like, yeah, you're suffering anxiety, man. You got to look into this anxiety thing. I think you're overriding what's happening to you and just pushing forward. And then
that speaks to what Ganesham was saying, is we need to, take it in and then let it go, right?
Yeah. And so that was a big shakeup. And in the midst of this, one of my dear friends, my student, who eventually became my teacher, Gopal Chandra, who I brought to India when he was young, and then he got initiated, and I was there for his marriage and the birth of his kids, and he got cancer, and he was leaving his body, and he's my next door neighbor practically, and I had to play the role of Kelly Becker, which is, you see people who are going through incredible struggles, and their families, and because the family, it's just like if I'm drunk driving on the road causing havoc, everybody else is in trouble on the road as well. So in the same sense, he's dying, he's suffering, he's losing his body, but the family's going through all this turmoil as well. So I'm trying to deal with them. I'm trying to deal with him, and I want to show up and be present for him. And then I'm going back to my own train wreck of a life. And so I had to get real sober when I was with him. And when you see a person who's tall, beautiful, healthy, respected, together, when you see his body crumbling in front of your eyes, all I saw was my body crumble. All I saw that, I get it. This isn't his death. This is everybody's death. This is my death. This is my future. This is everybody I love's future. And it was so confronting in that regard. And I had to he did amazingly well, but I had to show up for him on a regular basis and get into that consciousness. This is what all this stuff's about. This is even my own body, the beauty of the body is on loan to me. It's
Right.
not just your car is a loaner. It's just your rental car is a loaner. Your beauty is on loan. Your body's on loan. Your hair is on loan. Your strength is on loan. Your skill, you're going to lose it all. And I'm watching his sand castle crumble in front of me as well. And that's, and then to the point where we witnessed him leave his body. And that was another thing, because I really wanted to control it. I really wanted to control how he was going to leave his body. And it was he left his body, and we were all going to Italy for our retreat. And he was like, yeah, I want to leave my body before you. He was saying, I want to leave my body before you leave for Italy. And it's almost like Krishna did this to me, so I couldn't be fully in control of him leaving. He left his body the day after we left. And it was just filled with prayers, and I wanted to stay over. We were staying in his house at that point, and his mother's like, no, I want you just to go. I just want you to go. I want to be with him. I think he's going to die tomorrow. And I was like, well, I want to be with him. I know you want to be with him, but I want to be there. I want to be chanting with him. And I feel like I promised him that. And it was like a drama I was going through. And anyway, I'm not trying to highlight the bad or focus on the bad, because what happened was the Sangha, the community, the podcast, the Bhagavatam became, only if you've been on pilgrimage, you get this, but they have these lakes made of sandstone, Radhakund is like a lake. It's like a lake with stone
With steps
going down. And they can get very slimy and slippery, where you can actually slip and get hurt. So they have these chains that you hold on to, and you lower yourself into the lake so you don't slip. The Bhagavatam became like a chain for me to hold on to as the entire world crumbled around me. And I feel like it gave me some wisdom that I just didn't have. It made me sober. It made me grow up. It made me man up and to realize I'm not a man. And it made me to realize I'm a visitor. It forced me to zoom out on this world that I'm wrapped up in. It made me see myself in everybody else's suffering. And I mean, if I was to look back at the year, it was a blend of incredible, sand castles crumbling, yet sort of exciting things. I went to Colombia, I went to Nepal, I went to India twice, I went to Costa Rica. I traveled like crazy. So you could say, well, that's a great year. It's a devastating year. And you know what? It was just a year. And the only thing there was in the center there was Krishna. And the world is going to be filled with tons of ups and tons of downs. And you know what? Now the year's over. And the whole damn thing seems like a dream. And I'm better off with my family situations. Things have found its level. Gopal's gone. It was a very auspicious time. The farm, which I thought was going to completely collapse, had the most successful year, most successful year for having people come. And it got to be a hub for inspiration for so many of us. We just come together in person. We did tons of incredible retreats. Shout out to Radha Priti for assisting with all that stuff, and all the teachers who came and taught there. And it was just like in the community, it was just like in Bhakti, all we have is to give love. And you can always give love unless you don't want it anymore. And that's on you. That's not on the environment. That's on you. If I don't want to give love, that's my problem, And so the Bhagavatam kept me in a loving space and not a resentful, bitter, angry, why is this happening to me space. It could have gone there real quick. It's unfair. How dare she? Doesn't she know what I've done for her? It could have gone there. Why, God, did you do this to Gopal? He's been so good. And then you just see it all from a new set of lenses. It's the God trampolining, springing, accelerating our spiritual life. That's what's going on. And I tell you, I have more faith in Bhakti, on my spiritual path, in Krishna, on this is all real. I have more than ever after this year. And I don't let the world explode if it does. I trust you, Krishna. You got my back, and I got your back, Krishna. I'm here with you, Krishna, and you're here with me, and I feel that deep love and connection.
Whoo!
Woo! What a recap.
Even through this kind of like rocky year, it seems, when we talk about sadhana, like daily spiritual practice, we talk about making it steady, right? And I can see how the steadiness of doing the show, and when I say doing the show, it means the steadiness of reading and speaking and hearing Bhagavatam every day, that's like a thread that ran through the whole thing, steadily. And it's not just doing anything steadily. Like I would imagine doing anything steadily also helps one through that, right? Like, sure. Well, every day I go jogging or something like that. Yeah.
And that's important too. And I think that's all those things can be part of your mental and your spiritual life. Is just being steady with things, so your mind can be calm.
But there's a difference with Bhagavatam. Right. That this is something that's just it's a manifestation of spiritual energy that's just radiating wisdom so that you can process what you're going through.
I mean, I can knit in a bitter, angry way as well every day. But when you hear truth on a regular basis, you're not bitter, are you? No.
She's picking up the needle coming.
But you can't face the light and still stay in darkness on a regular basis. You'll either just say, I'm not interested in the Bhagavatam anymore. I can't listen to this. Or you got to be changed by that light. Bhagavatam is such powerful floodlights of truth that it melts all these false pretense of myself and my ego that I want to carry into this world. It won't let me do it. It won't allow me to stay bitter. It will force me to take radical responsibility for what's going on in my life. I'm not allowed to hate anymore.
You mentioned something towards the end of what you said and now the whole thing seems like it was a dream.
Right?
Right.
It's all a dream, and it's dreamlike.
It's also real as we're going through it. And then at the end of the year, you look back at it, and it was like a dream. Sometimes we say, oh, that seems like it was like 10 years ago,
right?
Or time plays, or time plays. Oh, that seems like it was yesterday, although it was a long time, But it's dreamlike. It's unreal in a sense, but it's only by hearing this and thinking about it on a regular basis, contemplating it through this wisdom.
Because
you can.
I'm sorry.
Well, that you can really take it in, process it, grow through it, and then let it all go. Right. And then just release it.
Yeah. Back to Ghanshyam's point.
Yeah. And it's also the point of, we just read a whole canto this year. We started the 4th canto at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And we ended it at the end of the year. So it was one nice, neat, clean reading of the 4th canto. And if you look at the fourth canto, what it is again, we mentioned this the other day, it's going straight down. It's Sukadeva Goswami, this completely otherworldly bhakti yogi, sitting naked, right, in front of this
16
king.
years old.
He's 16 years old, sitting in front of this king who's about to die, Maharaj Pariksit, and surrounded by all these sages and other people that are just becoming fascinated by him.
Demigods
and even villagers and stuff like that were kind of like following, because like, who is this person? And then he begins to speak, and so for this fourth canto, what he did was he just followed one branch of a family tree, going from Lord Brahma to Swayambhuva Manu. And then in the third canto, he was following the daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. In the fourth canto, he followed one of the sons, beginning with Uttanapad, King Uttanapad. And then we heard about his son, Dhruva. And then we went further down the list, and we heard about Anga, King Anga. And then we heard about his horrible offspring, Vena. And then his super glorious offspring, Prithu. And then we went further down the branch, generations down the branch. We heard about King Prachini Barhi, and then his sons. And then his sons, the Prachetas. So that's where we ended. Yeah. So it was King Uttanapad. They all shared something common, and I'll say it in a second. But King Uttanapad, King Dhruva, King Anga, King Prithu, King Prachini Barhi, and then ultimately the kings, the Prachetas. We hear about their struggles in taking on responsibilities in the world, their processing of it through the lens of bhakti, and then they're letting go of everything. And letting go of their, towards the end of their life, letting go of it all, and being ready, being capable of focusing their minds and hearts with devotion deeply on God and feeling love for God in every living being. It's repeated again and again and again. Now the Sukadeva Goswami, he's not a king. He's a naked wanderer, 16-year-old wanderer, total transcendentalist, but he's speaking to a king, and he's giving examples that he can relate to. And in every one, the message is the same: take up your responsibility, do what you need to do. You will suffer through it. Endure the suffering, take it in, learn from it, grow from it, process it through the lens of bhakti, then let it go, and let go of all your attachments and walk away. There's such a message, repeated message again and again. And again, in our own micro way, we all have to do that. We may not be kings, and we may not even walk away from everything, but we do have to go through this process. As this is how we get shaped. This is how we transform through bhakti yoga. Kelly Becker's doing it in an ICU, right? You were doing it caring for your friend, who's dying of cancer. You were doing it through caring for your family and going through the struggles. And every one of us is going through it in one way or another. There's a way to go through it, not become overwhelmed. How? Daily listening to this wisdom, contemplating, reflecting, sharing it with others, hearing and discussing with others. This is what we're doing in our sage groups. It's an opportunity where this is what I'm going through. It's hard. What are your thoughts on this in developing the friendship so that we have people that we can talk to and process these things with? We need that. That's also part of the message. We need to share with others, and then growing through it. And even while we're still in that position, in a sense, letting it go. I got it so clear when you said, and now it seems like it's all a dream. In one sense, I could see you've let it go. You do let these things go. Your life is like you and I have lives that are in some ways very similar, in some ways very different. Like yours is like
similar. How are they similar?
They're similar in so many ways. but like, if we had like a Richter scale, yours would be bouncing up and down, and mine would be kind of going just more like on a steady plane.
Like mine's like the dead body thing.
It's just whatever it is. It's beautiful for what it is, but it's challenging and it's rocky.
Yeah.
And Bhagavatam's, helping you make the most of it.
The Bhagavatam gives you whatever your karma is. And you guys know your karma. Sometimes you go to an astrologer and say, well, your karma is to this and that. And you'd be like, well, I already knew that, because you know your karma. If you're 40 years in, 50 years in, you know what your karma is. No astrologer can tell you in one sense. Yeah. But what's going on now is it's how you deal with what you're getting. How you deal with what you're getting is creating you.
And how you're always moving forward. And what I've been going through in my life. And when I'm looking, and when what's going on? Well, it's just in my own life, what I feel, you look back at the year, what did you learn? How did you grow? Where are you now that you weren't before? And where do you hope to be in the future? And for me, a lot, I feel tremendous gratitude towards yourself and towards Merit, to all the wisdom of the sages people. Again, just like you, it's life changing, it's life sustaining to have a sangha where you're reading Bhagavatam and appreciating it and learning from it and growing from it every day. And it's making such a difference in my life. You and I started, in 2019 with, I was reading Bhagavatam every day on the kind of the encouragement of Vaisheshika Prabhu. And you asked me, hey, what should I do like online? I got some students that want to study something every day. What should I do? And I say, I want you to do Bhagavatam every day. And, it has that decision, right? I'm going to read Bhagavatam every day. I'm going to hear from Bhagavatam every day. And everybody that listens to the show steadily has made that decision. Mm. It has been life changing and life transforming for me. It's actually given me, even though I was practicing bhakti and serving in different ways all the way up to that point, the steadiness of hearing Bhagavatam in this way, in a very real way, has been very life transforming for me. And part of it, and where it's played out for me in this year and even in recent months, is kind of like boiling down or filtering my own spiritual practice and my own spiritual, like the world that I live in and how I understand who I am in relation to, like, say, the institution that I've been practicing in relation to the texts that I've been reading, in relation to the people who I've served with, going deeper. In other words, this is my point, going beyond the superficial. Sometimes we've considered the superficial to be sacred, and it becomes, and it creates a kind of static situation where you're not actually progressing. Sometimes it's a little hard to look at something or someone that you thought was sacred, look at them in a different way. But if we can do it in a way where there's no resentment and there's still appreciation, then we can boil down our spiritual practice to more and more real, to the most essential part. And, we started the year at the beginning of the fourth canto with such an interesting story. And that was the story of this relationship between Lord Shiva and Daksha, right? And what they both, in a sense, what they both represent in the story. And here Daksha represents, he's this amazing figure. It's said that, like, he practically glowed, like he was powerful and incredibly influential. But he was, like, in a sense, a very rigid religious figure.
Sure.
Right. And he placed an incredible amount of value on the Vedas and their teachings and strictly following them, and
theologian and academic,
a priest
of the celestial worlds. Yeah. So it was very deep.
Yeah. And it gave him power, but he hadn't gotten to the essence of spirituality. Right. And the way that it was illustrated and this is why I feel a deeper and deeper sense of gratitude towards the Bhagavatam every year, because what I feel it does is it boils out the superficial and gets you to the essence. So here we have a figure of Lord Shiva who seems entirely unorthodox, right? He's dirty looking, like, like for Daksha, being religious and spiritual means being very clean, be very pucka, Lord Shiva's got like he's got like a garland of skulls around his neck. He's covered with ashes from the crematoria. Yeah, he's like
his hair is uncombed.
His hair is matted, right?
He's got the moon on his head.
And he's got all these followers who are like goblins, like they're really, but he sees something in them that Daksha can't see, and Daksha can't see in him the depth of his spiritual heart. So he insults Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva just walks away from it. He doesn't even retaliate, but it creates this big rift, which plays out in this wild story, right? Yeah. Where Lord Shiva's wife is Daksha's daughter. She wants to go back and visit him for it was like a big party, right? There was a religious ceremony, but it was kind of like a big social event.
Yeah.
And she's seeing everybody going to it. They're all dressed up, and I want to go. It's my home. And Lord Shiva is saying, I don't think it'll end well. You do what you want, but I don't think this is going to go well. She goes with a bunch of Lord Shiva's followers, and her father just ignores her because she associates with Lord Shiva.
Daksha just snubbed her.
And
he thought he would teach her a lesson, but instead she just became incensed. Incest? What's the word? Incest. Incensed.
It's incensed. She became angry.
Incensed, and she lost it on her father. And she said, "You know what? I'd rather just leave my body than have you as a father."
I can't stand to be in a body that's related to yours. She sits down and first she gives him a mouthful. She speaks truth to power, right? She glorifies Lord Shiva. She says, "People like you can't understand him. You're stuck in your rigid ways. You haven't gotten to the essence. You can't see just how pure he is, just how kind he is, just how deeply spiritual he is." And it hurts her so much that she says, "I can't stand even being in this body anymore." She sits down through her yogic prowess. She just ignited her own body. And then the whole event breaks down into chaos.
Yeah.
Right. And that you take that paradigm, or that that vision of of that, and I can see it play out in this world. I can see it play out in politics. I can see it play out in people's relationships and how they're I see it play out in social media. I see it play out in spiritual institutions.
What do you mean? How play out?
Tensions between the Orthodox and the less Orthodox, and the challenge of boiling down our spiritual understanding, the religious boundaries and structures, structures that we need to have a life that doesn't just turn into chaos, but getting beyond its limitations so that we can actually get to what's it's a difficult world that we live in.
It's the balance between spirituality and church, or spirituality versus we all like the idea of spirituality, but we all got to most of us got here due to some form of institution. Now, the problem with institutions there's millions of problems with institutions, but in one sense, I'm in debt to the institution. So what is that fine line where you can respect it, have to challenge it, and can you challenge it without falling, right? You said this to me, don't wrestle skunks, you're going to get dirty, you're going to start to stink. So can you challenge it by trying to actually care to change it, or are you just going to end up falling into the same problems of fault finding, gossip, being hateful, which you see with a lot of people in social justice? They get caught up into hating, which isn't a win in spiritual life. So how can I change things? How can I see a positive change? How can I be spiritual, maintain spiritual values? How can I keep a community that doesn't fall into politics? Is this where you're going with this?
It is. Yeah, I like what you're saying. In other words, that idea, and again, this gets back to me to Ganesham's thing, taking it all in, being changed by it in a positive way, processing it, and then letting things go. Letting go of what's not essential. I think this has so much to do with what it means to become deeper in spirituality. Every year, hopefully we're going deeper, right? We're understanding it, what was before us and seemed very clear to us before we understand it deeper, we let go of what's unessential and we go and we cling more to what's most essential. Bhagavatam is the text that is really all about exactly that, right? You have the vast Vedic literatures provided by Vyasadeva, this great sage, and then he provides Bhagavatam so that we can get to the essential part of it, to the very essence of it. And it means letting go of a lot of the teachings that we held so sacred in the Vedas and the Upanishads. I see that is a lot. If I'm coming out of this past year, to me, this is a lot of what this year has been to me. Trying to see, trying to look at what's helped me and what's held me back from the spiritual circles that I have existed in, my own behavior, my own thinking, and that of people that I associate with. Trying to on the one hand, recognize it and always respond to it in a way that's responsible and compassionate. Both, right? Dutiful, both dutiful and caring. Seeing that, hopefully playing a role in justice being done, hopefully playing a role in holding up the structures that need to be held up, and at the same time, letting go of anything that is inessential that maybe is holding us back, and being able to do that without any resentment, understanding that we live in a very imperfect world, and seeing that even the imperfection of the world is my ground for spiritual transformation. It's important. It's an ugly world that we live in, and it's a beautiful world both, and trying to coexist with them with a steady mind, always moving forward. To me, a lot of what 2022, trying to learn this and understand this and function this way is a lot of what that year's been to me.
But we're out of time, but I really want to share one thing, because I was a little disturbed. I was a little disturbed yesterday. I didn't have Facebook on my phone because I got a new phone. So I went on it, and I ended up like immediately, and I've been sort of not using Facebook because I found
it's one of the dirtier social media.
It's one of the dirtier of the social media platforms. So it's been a pleasure to be off of it. And sure enough, I went to some devotee forum thing.
Yeah.
And as I was like, okay, I'm going to go into this, but keep myself protected, because a lot of times in these forums, people go down south real quick and find criticisms. And sometimes in the name of improving things, it can bring out the people's worst nature and instigate other people who are less evolved to even go nastier. And I went in this sort of strong, and then I just had to leave and walk away from it. And through the course of the day, that happened in the morning. In the course of the day, there was something in the back of my mind bothering me. And what was bothering me was I had this like, why am I upset about something? And what I realized is that here's a group of people who've dedicated their lives to spiritual life. And they're falling into these like real subtle traps of Maya. Because it's one thing to be a detective that deals with murder on a regular basis, and that's to study all clues and go through murder victims and pictures and check out corpses and stuff like that. It's another thing if I do that. Hey, Raghunath, go check out these corpses. That's going to affect me for days. It's one thing if there's trying to be some like improvement going on. I'm coming here to improve something. It's another thing if I sort of want to improve it, but I also want to vex and vent, and then it just becomes real nasty. And what I find this, and I'm not, it's not even a criticism, it's a sadness that, and an appreciation for the Bhagavatam, because it's really easy to go there, whereas there's boogeymen that are out there making the world wrong, and I'm right. But it's by hearing the Bhagavatam on a regular basis, it makes me want to just walk away from these conversations and keep the main thing, which is I'm going to glorify Krishna and I'm going to appreciate the devotees. And I don't want to ignore what's out there, but there are certain things that are just not within my universe that are not going to, that I'm not going to change. And I can change I'll have more leverage to change people if I can really deeply transform my own heart. And so there are people like that are new to our podcast that are just sort of listening. I like Bhakti. It's sort of interesting. And there will be times in your life where you're going to be almost like driving my truck. If I just let go of the wheel of my truck, it'll still go straight, but it will slightly veer. And eventually you're going to veer so off the path, you're going to be driving through fields. And whether you're new to the podcast and you do that, or whether you've been in a Bhakti collective groups for years and twice initiated and been around for 30 years, not if you hear on a regular basis, it keeps you on track and it will help you discern when I have to step up and be loud and when I have to pull back and just let the world sort things out. And I've got to keep focused on what I have to be focused on. How did that sound to you? I don't want to sound lame in this regard.
Well, I think I would add to that. In other words, in general, I agree. Not even in general. Like I agree with what you're saying, but I just want to be clear about something. It's just like we've been talking about this entire show. You take someone like Kelly Becker, she's not just walking away from the issue. She's, like she could just say, "Oh, this whole thing is too overwhelming. I just want to hide my head in the sand." I think it is important that we deal with difficult issues.
Yeah.
And in one sense, we all have a responsibility, in different ways. So trying to understand what is my responsibility, but never falling victim to where we become one of the characters in these stories where the cursing and the counter cursing is going on. And that's what Bhagavatam helps us understand. Like you read this whole thing at a certain point, there's Daksha's followers, these rigid religious people, they're kind of the establishment, right? And they're cursing, the rebels in a sense, like Lord Shiva's followers. Lord Shiva's followers are cursing, they're counter cursing, they're going back with counter curses. And the whole thing is a big mess. Right. And then certain thinkers that whose minds that had gotten deeper into the essence of spirituality come down, and it's by their influence that peace is found and everybody's mind becomes restored and justice is done and peace is reestablished. So we all have a question to ask ourselves. It's not that we're running away from problems, and not that we're not going to deal with them, but can we deal with these important issues without becoming one of these figures in that's cursing or counter cursing?
Sure.
And it can be challenging.
With me, it brings out my old nasty nature that I've sort of like been working really hard to get rid of. Mara's pointing the clock. We're going overboard. You know what? We're overboard because it's the 1st of January, Mara.
Great, but we have a plane to catch.
But we have a plane to catch too.
Okay.
I'm grateful for Mara this year. We're sort of like the Jim and Pam, Come on.
All right. So in any case,
yes. Anyway,
in any case, I'm just very grateful to everyone. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to everybody that tunes in every day. Let me share this. One thing that happened this year was that our listenership increased about 75%.
What? How many downloads is that a month? How many Bhagavatam downloads is that a month?
Well, just audio. The downloads per month is total, if you include like YouTube, it's about 250,000 a month.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And just on the audio, we went from like 1.3 million from the previous year to like over 2.3 million this year. So that's something like a 75% increase. And then if you add if you add all the YouTube and all that, it goes way up. So it was a year of growth, for listenership. And so
that is beautiful.
Somehow the message, people are catching on that, hey, hearing this Bhagavatam steady is valuable. Let me keep tuning in. So
it is January 1st. It is a great day to go to Apple Podcasts and write a little message of how you got into this and an appreciation for the Bhagavatam when it has reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't done that, do us a favor. It helps the algorithms somehow or another. Helps push us towards the tops when people open their iPhone like, oh, look at this thing. Wisdom of the Sages. And spread it with a friend today. Spread it with a friend. It's a very organic. We're not asking anything from people except hear truth on a regular basis and watch it affect you in a positive way, like it's affected us, like it's actually tangibly, practically affecting us day to day. We want to thank everybody who contributes to this community supported podcast. Your monthly contribution goes a long way, and it's become a full-time engagement for our consciousness, our life, and our minds. We never expected it to be this, but it is. And there's our closing song, our Happy New Year song.
Hey, so for 2 days we're not back, but we'll come back on what day? On Wednesday?
Yeah.
And
Wednesday.
we will be
Wait a second.
at 7 o'clock,
Is
right?
it?
We're off on Monday and Tuesday, so we're off
Okay.
the 2nd and the 3rd.
Okay, we're back on the 4th.
We're back on the 4th at 7 a.m., correct? I think so. I'm pretty sure it's 7 a.m. Mara will let you know, but yeah, I think 5:30 here, 5:30 p.m. in India, 7 a.m. in New York. And I think that'll be our steady time for
Yeah,
the
we're going to
month
try
of
to get
January.
steady for a month. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages is where you can make a donation to keep this boat floating. Thanks to our community. Thanks to our people here. Thanks to the people that show up at the farm and at the retreats. Makes a big difference. We've all made new best friends from this community. Friends that stay with you for a lifetime and then actually have something to offer us when times get tough. Thank you very much.